What about the recovery? Oh, okay, yeah. So now, just to complete the variations, right? We've seen power step, diagonal cross step, right? We've seen smaller cross step. We've seen open stance, and then you will also see this. And guess what? That looks more like a regular forehand. And he does this on the second serve, right? Where he'll move back, run around, and hit something closer to a regular forehand as well. You see the butt squared up there, and guess what? There's the wiper. You know, and typically those balls will have quite a bit more spin because of the wiper. So you know, it's interesting, as with everything, when you start to look at it in the high-speed footage. You know, the more you look, the less you know. The more you look, the more complex it gets. The more you look, the more variations there are. But I think that pretty much covers the range of what Roger does on his returns. So now let's look at the recovery. So there's that diagonal power step, right? It's very different in the deuce court versus the ad court. Let's just make one more point. He's going to swing that recovery step around, right? Look at where, let's see this. Do it, Roger. Okay, so look at where, however, the recovery foot, or the foot that's going to take the recovery step is in relation to the swing, okay? And this is a place where I think high-speed video has misled some coaches, because yes, here comes the recovery step, but after the extension, right? So that foot is swinging around, okay? Look that the racket has already almost fully recovered. You have to differentiate the timing, right? The forward swing is finished, then the recovery step swings around, and now in the deuce court, because that power step will take him so wide, almost always a crossover. Now watch the difference in the ad court. With the power step, the step is actually taking him in the direction of the recovery. So what you will typically see is not a crossover, either a slide step or just a default into the ready position. Okay, so we're going to switch in a second here. I want to take a little break to the extreme returns. Any questions before we go on? You guys agree with everything I said? That's awesome. Okay.
Well, little one. I saw in a couple of videos you talked about the position he lands in when he does his split step.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it was significantly wider than others. Is there a real reason for that, or is that something related to what the server is doing, or?
It's a really great question. I think that obviously, if you can land wide, you can get more knee bend. If you can get more knee bend, then you're going to get more charge or more coil in your quads, and you're going to get more ground reaction force when you push. Not everybody is strong enough to land that wide.
Sure. Right. So like even in his videos, sometimes he was narrower and wider. You know, do we understand why there's that variation in his landing position?
That's a great question. I'm going to think about that.
Okay.
You made a comment about the increased spin after you said the wiper finish. I've seen in a lot of the videos, the wiper is all long gone.
This is a really interesting point. Okay, so obviously, by the time the racket gets here, you know, at the extension of the wiper, right, the ball has been gone for milliseconds. What's interesting is, and you can see it in the footage, is the wiper starts just before the contact.
So
right,
it's
so
a
now,
starting point, this is significant.
And even if they're coming in, you know, so this is, you know, we'll use the trendy biomechanical terms, external shoulder rotation, where I'm rotating this upper segment back. Can you guys see? Hand and arm rotation is going backwards, right? So when I rotate back, then I'm going to rotate forward when I come into the ball. You can see that all the guys are rotating a little bit when they come in. On certain balls, this rotation backwards will be more. Okay. Now, again, this is something that I learned from Brian. So I'm just going to take his word for it. This segment is the one segment in the body that you in the upper body that you can rotate the fastest, right? So the whole thing with the wiper is that if you are rotating the hitting arm from the shoulder joint, that gives you a lot more ability to accelerate the upward dimension than this lift from the shoulder. The rotation is faster than the lift, the brush up the ball. Both are happening, right? But this is faster, and also the interesting thing about this is it tends to facilitate side spin. So this is where the hooking comes in, right? This is one of the things that we'd like to be able to do. Technologically, we haven't been able to do it yet, is break out the side spin dimension, because on the ground strokes, top spin is the predominant spin that a lot of the balls have a strong side spin component. We just don't know how much. It's just too hard to tell from the one camera footage. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'm a simple guy. I like simple. And
Yeah.
I don't like putting too many words or thoughts into a student's head.
Mm-hmm.
And the simplicity of it is that if you start below it and then you just pin it, because you're certainly not going to start below it and whip it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you are coming to the ball with that upward motion, and I take Yandell as the extreme. I like his as a starting forehand for everybody, because he's learning that windshield wiper, but his is happening way up here where you don't even think about it.
Well, that's an interesting question. I think what you see when you look at Yandell, and you can look at the footage in a minute, is that both are happening. In other words, there's the lift, the old brush up the back of the ball, that's happening. There's two dimensions to look at. One is the extension, right? And the other is the rotation. And with Yandell, when he extends, he's also going so radically up. He's also wipering, but the upward component with that grip is so extreme that he goes here and then up and over because of the massive upward acceleration in this one. All right, so let's take a 5-minute break and we'll go on to the extreme returns, okay?